So today's video is all about coffee. We're going to talk about the caffeine in coffee, the decaf process, and if that's bad for you or good for you, how the roasting process works, and just really get into coffee. I've done a lot of videos on coffee alternatives and different things about caffeine, but this is just solely focused on it because there's so much information that I think a lot of people don't know. And I actually learned so much from Ben Greenfield's book. If you guys don't know who Ben Greenfield is, I will link him below. But he wrote an incredible book called Boundless, and he is so knowledgeable on wellness. And he doesn't like to say that he's a biohacker, but it's almost similar to that, and like little things, supplements and natural things you can do to kind of get your body in the best state possible. So I'm basically going to be summarizing a section from his book on coffee and caffeine and going a little more into it, but I just wanted to share that first. So first, let's just talk about coffee in general and the caffeine. Like, how does caffeine work? How does it actually make us energized? So the first thing you need to know is that there's receptors all over your body that basically get stimulated and triggered, and that's how they work. So you can have receptors for feeling tired, for feeling happy, for feeling anxious. And it's almost like a puzzle piece. So when something like caffeine comes in and it hits a receptor in your brain, then it makes you feel energized. Now, the interesting thing is that certain compounds and chemicals can have similar structures, meaning they can trigger different receptors. So basically, caffeine has a similar receptor to something called adenosine. And adenosine is a naturally occurring substance in our body that makes us feel tired. So it promotes feelings of sleepiness and tiredness. Now, if adenosine is going to hit a receptor and cause you to feel tired, you can imagine that if caffeine is coming and blocking those receptors because it also hits it, you're not going to feel tired because there's no adenosine actually doing its job. And that's literally how caffeine makes you feel awake. You're basically just blocking the effects of something else in your body that makes you feel tired. Now, anytime there's something like this that happens in your body's very smart and will overcompensate. So what happens over time with long-term caffeine use is that your body starts to create more adenosine receptors because it's like, okay, we're not getting triggered enough by what we need to, so let's create more. Now what's gonna happen? You're gonna need more caffeine to bind more of those receptors to actually get the effect. And this just kind of explains why the more caffeine you drink, the more you need to actually feel the effects. So the long-term effects of it are you're gonna need higher doses, which can just give you feelings of like anxiety and jitteriness and nervousness. Now let's actually talk about coffee and what goes into it and roasting it. So coffee on its own, whether you have like the highest quality coffee in the world, that has a substance called acrylamide, which has been shown to be cancerous in animals. Now you don't have to worry because all coffee companies end up roasting it, and that's how you get rid of the acrylamide. So you don't have to worry about that effect. However, the issue with over roasting your coffee, not only will this give it kind of a burnt flavor, which a lot of people complain about with Starbucks, but also this over roasting process can actually create another toxic chemical that has been linked to cancer and different things. So that substance I'm actually going to pop up here, it's PAH because I don't want to mispronounce it. So how do you find a happy medium here and make sure that you're kind of getting the best of both worlds? Basically, you want to get a medium roast coffee. So a medium roast coffee is going to get rid of the acrylamide, but also not roast it too much that you're getting the PAHs. Also, one thing Ben Greenfield mentioned in his book was that you could find coffee that uses smokeless roasting. I was researching smokeless roasting and I really couldn't find anything. So I don't like suggesting things that I can't actually give you practical tips for. If anyone knows how to find smokeless roasted coffee, please let me know in the comments, or maybe Ben Greenfield will watch this video and he will help us, get guided onto where we can find that. But getting a medium roast is going to kind of be your best friend here. So now let's talk about how to get positive effects from some of the negative effects of coffee. So we already talked about the roasting process. Now let's get into caffeine. So one thing that he mentions is that you can take a little caffeine break every 4 to 8 weeks for 7 to 10 days. So let's say you drink a lot of caffeine. One way to kind of just reboot your body and kind of bring you back to balance is to take a break, and you can have decaf coffee. We're going to get into decaf coffee too later in the video, but that's just one tip there. Another really interesting tip is to have L-theanine, which is a substance you can get either as a supplement or, which I think is really cool, the brand Sakara, which I've partnered with before, and I love their plant-based like nutrition brands, they actually make these little chocolates that have L-theanine in them. And if you take 100 to 200 milligrams of L-theanine every time you have coffee, it kind of helps offset that caffeine effect. And this also kind of makes sense because if you think about matcha, one of the highest components in matcha is L-theanine, and it's known to give you kind of a calm energy. So I'm thinking that the effect here is to kind of make you feel calm and not jittery, and also just offset the effects of caffeine. So you could either have a delicious Sakara chocolate, which I'll link below, or you could get a supplement of L-theanine if you really want to kind of reduce the effects of caffeine on your body. So now let's get into decaf, because I used to be a huge decaf drinker and I was always like, oh, it's fine. Like I loved sipping on coffee all day, but I didn't want the caffeine. So the process of decaffeinating coffee usually uses chemicals. So they use chemical solvents. I'm gonna pop up two of the really common ones here that are used. And when you think about it, if it's something that you're consuming all the time, you're almost like, is it worth it to be ingesting these chemicals every day, or should I just have the caffeine? So you want to find a balance there too, but there is actually a very clean way to get decaf coffee, and that is using the Swiss water method. So Swiss water decaf coffee basically uses water, and it has this whole process of like really slowly dissolving out the caffeine. No chemicals involved. There's actually two brands that I'm going to link below from my research that I found where you can buy their cleaner caffeine-free alternatives. These are the ones that I'm going to be consuming from here on out, because I just don't, for me, I would rather just drink the caffeine when I'm out versus ordering a decaf, because I'm sure most coffee shops, unless they're really known to be like a wellness shop and really advertise that they do a cleaner decaf method, probably use a chemical solvent. So the Swiss water method is really cool. It's like they soak it in water, like they take green coffee beans and soak it in water. And then because a lot of times when you soak them in water, you also lose a lot of the flavor and antioxidants, they actually use that water once they drain it to soak like another round so that you're still getting, it's a little complicated. I'm not like a coffee connoisseur, but you can read about it and I'll link it below. I just find it really interesting, and I think great that there's other alternatives we can have. So in summary, like caffeine can have negative effects on us, but there are ways around it. We've got supplements you can take with it. You can do a medium roast coffee so that you're not getting the chemicals in coffee. And then if you are going to be drinking decaf, I would highly recommend choosing from one of the brands that use the Swiss water method and use a cleaner method of decaffeinating their coffee. And with COVID, and depending on when you watch this video in years to come, we're all learning to be more self-sufficient and make our own coffee at home. So it's not a bad idea to just get into that routine and doing it yourself anyway. So I hope this was helpful and you found this as interesting as I did. If you have any questions, please leave it below, and I'll also link Ben Greenfield's book below for anyone who wants to check it out. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.